We started the last time with problem 836 and we didn't complete it, so let us first of all complete the problem. Of course, according to our solving of this problem, we found out that the static budget number of setups is 600. The flexible budget number of setups was 648. Of course, this was the requirement number 1, this was requirement number 2, and now requirement number 3, the actual number of setups was 675, and requirement number 4, the fixed overhead rate was calculated to be $22 per setup hour. And of course, according to our question, they gave us some information regarding the number of units, for the number of books, of course, for the static, I think, and the actual. What was the amount for the static? 500 books, 30,000, I think, 300,000 or 300,000 books. And the actual, 324,000. And then the average number of books per setup, this is exactly 500, and the actual 480, and then hours to set up, how much? I think 8, and the actual is 8.2, and then direct variable costs per setup hour is $40.39 for the actual, and the total fixed overhead costs is 105,600 119,000. Therefore, we calculated the static budget number of setups, we calculated the flexible budget number of setups, we calculated the actual number of setups, and we calculated the rate by which we are going to allocate the fixed overhead costs according to the allocation rate or the allocation basis of the setup hours. Now, let us consider number 6, I think. What is required for number 6? Who wants to read, please? Yes. Therefore, we need to calculate or make the variance analysis for the direct variable costs. Of course, we can calculate the spending and the efficiency variances by using our columnar interpretation or presentation. We start with the actual, which is the actual quantity multiplied by the actual rate or price, and then the actual quantity multiplied by the budgeted rate, and then the flexible budget amount, which is the budgeted quantity multiplied by the budgeted rate. Here, what do we mean by the actual quantity? The actual quantity of setup or setup hours. Because as we just said, that the setup hours, according to our question, was the allocation base that we are going to use in order to allocate our fixed overhead rate as well as the different costs. Therefore, the quantity that we are talking about is the setup hours. And these hours are not related to individual units, but they are related to the number of batches. This is the difference between using a batch level cost and calculating the variance analysis to a batch level cost or to an output level or a unit level cost. Therefore, as we said or as we discussed in chapter number 7 and in chapter number 8, that the quantity is always related to the units. Like for instance, the machine hours. We said that the machine hours are related to individual units. That means that if we are going to produce more or 1 unit more than budgeted, we need more machine hours. But in this case, this is not the case. Why? Because as we said, here we are calculating the variances for a batch level, not for an output level. Therefore, we are considering the cost, we are considering the allocation base that is concerned with a batch level, not with a unit level, which is in this case is the setup hours. Therefore, what do you think is the actual variable cost? So what do you think is the actual variable cost? Multiplied by what? Excellent. First of all, the actual rate as they are given here, according to the question, we have a direct variable cost per setup hour by the amount of 39. Therefore, we are going to use the $39 as the actual rate. Correct. Therefore, now we need to multiply the 39 by the actual quantity or the actual setup hours or number of setup hours. So what is the actual setup hours? 8.2 hours to set up multiplied by the actual number of setups, which is the 480. Therefore, 480 is exactly what? The average number of books per setup. But according to our standard costing, we need to use what? Why 675? Because these are the actual number of setups. These are the average number of books per setup. The 480 is the number of books that was used or the number of books that was produced in one setup. But the 675 is the number of setups. Therefore, we need to multiply the 8.2, which is the actual hours to set up, by the actual number of setups that was calculated in requirement number 3, 675. The 480 is not the number of setups, it is the number of books. Be careful of interpreting the numbers. Therefore, $39 multiplied by 8.2 multiplied by 675, which will equal 215,865. This is the actual amount. Of course, now the actual quantity is now known because we have 30 or 8.2 hours, actual hours to set up, and we have 675 number or actual number of setups. Therefore, 675 multiplied by 8.2, of course multiplied by the budgeted rate, which is given also in the question by the amount of 40, not 8, $40. Therefore, the amount would equal to 121,400. Now, for the flexible budget amount, we need to multiply the budgeted quantity by the budgeted rate. Therefore, we are going to use the standard amounts of the quantity. Therefore, we are going to multiply the 8 hours for one setup by the flexible budget number of setups, which is the 648. Why to use the 648, not the 600? Why do you think we need to use the 648, not the 600? Excellent, excellent. Therefore, this 648 is allowed for the actual output of 324,000 books, while as the 600 number of setups is allowed for a budgeted number of units, which is the $300,000 books, sorry. Therefore, as we said in our interpretation and discussion of the flexible budget is prepared according to the actual output. Therefore, we are going to use the 648. Therefore, 8 multiplied by 648 multiplied by 40 multiplied by 8 multiplied by 40 which will equal 207,360. Of course, after calculating these numbers, it is so easy to calculate the variances, of course the efficiency variance and the spending variance. The difference between column 1 and column 2 is a spending variance. Of course, we should have incurred 221,400, but we only incurred 215. Therefore, this is a favorable variance. Of course, the difference between the two is 5,535. And then the efficiency variance, which is the difference between the flexible budget and the second column. Therefore, as we can see here, we should have incurred only 207,000, but we have incurred more, 221,400. Therefore, this is an unfavorable variance by the amount of 14,040. Therefore, these are the spending and efficiency variance for the variable costs. Any question? Number 7. Therefore, now we need to calculate the variance analysis, or calculate the different variances, the production volume variance and the spending variance for the fixed manufacturing overhead, or the fixed overhead costs. Of course, we need the flexible budget amount, which is the same as the static budget amount. Therefore, we have the 105,600, correct? This is the flexible budget amount. And we know that the difference between the flexible budget amount and the actual amount, which is the 119,000, is only attributable to a spending variance, because we never have an efficiency variance, correct? Now we need to know the allocated fixed manufacturing, or the fixed overhead cost in this case, in order to compute the production volume variance. Of course, the allocated would be allocated by this rate, which is the $22 per setup hour. Now let us see what is the production volume variance and what is the spending variance, the fixed overhead costs, actual, flexible budget, and the allocated. Of course, the actual, it is given as $119,000. The flexible budget is also given according to the static budget, $105,600. Now we need to calculate the allocated costs. So what is the allocated amount of fixed overhead in this case? According to our standard costing system, we are going to use budgeted quantities and budgeted rates. And we have already calculated the budgeted rate. Now we need to know what is the budgeted quantity. Of course, we are going to use the budgeted quantity or the standard quantity of setup hours for the actual output. Therefore, we are going to use the $8 and the 648 number of setups. Therefore, 8 hours per setup multiplied by 648 setups is our budgeted quantity. This is the budgeted quantity, correct? Now we need to multiply it by the budgeted rate, which is $22. Therefore, it would be 114,048. Therefore, first of all, according to our static budget or flexible budget, we should have incurred $105,600, but we have incurred 119, which is more. Therefore, this is an unfavorable, variance. By the amount of 13,400. Of course, this is a spending variance. Of course, the production volume variance is the difference between the 114,048 and the 105,600. Of course, we have more costs. The allocated costs are more than the budgeted costs according to our flexible budget and the static budget. Why did we allocate more? Because we produced more units, or we used more setup hours, therefore we produced more units. Therefore, this is a favorable variance. Correct? The difference is $8,448. Any questions? Now let us consider problem 841, which will be the last problem for this chapter, inshallah. Problem 841. Who would like to read 841, please? Yes.
Overhead variance on sales volume variance. Keeping green, common, budgeted production and sales for these brands for 2011 is 800,000 bags with a standard of 400,000 machine hour for the whole year.
Again, please, 8,000 bags.
Budgeted production and sales.
Yes?
800,000.
800,000. Yes?
400,000 standard machine. Production was standard production and sales.
Yes, the budgeted production and sales is 800,000 bags. It will use 400,000 standard machine hours. Yes.
Budgeted fixed overhead costs are 470,000.
470,000.
And variable overhead cost 1.60 per machine hour. Because of the increased demand, actual production and sales, the bags for 2010 are 800,000, 900,000 bags,
Yes.
using 440,000
440,000
actual machine hour.
actual machine hours.
Actual variable overhead costs are 600.
Actual variable overhead costs. Yes.
699, 600.
Yes.
And actual fixed overhead 501.
How much? 501,900.
Actual selling price is 6 per bag.
$6 per bag.
Direct material and direct labor actual cost were the same as standard cost, which were 1.20 per unit and 1.80 per unit.
They gave us the budgeted price by the amount of $5, I think.
Required one. Calculate the variable overhead and fixed overhead variance, spending efficiency and spending and volume.
Therefore, we need to calculate the fixed overhead and the variable overhead variances. Therefore, we need to compare the actual with the actual quantity multiplied by the budgeted price and the flexible budget amount for the variable manufacturing overhead. Let us start with the actual and then the actual quantity multiplied by the budgeted price, and then for the flexible budget amount. And of course, the allocated for the variable manufacturing overhead would equal the flexible budget. Therefore, what is the actual variable manufacturing overhead? It is 699,600. The actual quantity of the allocation base here is 440,000 actual machine hours, correct? Multiplied by the budgeted rate as given here, $1.6, which would equal $704,000. Of course, the flexible budget amount is the machine hours that is required to produce the 900, or the standard machine hours to produce the 900,000 bags. So what do you think, or how we are going to calculate the machine hours that should be used in order to produce the 900,000 bags? Yes, think of it. We need the budgeted quantity of machine hours. The 440 are the actual machine hours. And this 400,000 are the standard machine hours for the 800,000 bags. Now we need to calculate the machine hours for the 900,000, or the standard machine hours for the 900,000 bags. Think of it. Expect these, let us say, items to be in your questions in the exam. You need to consider that some of the information will not be given to you as some of the questions on a golden platter, as they say. Therefore, you need to think of how you are going to get these numbers, how you are going to deduct these numbers. The 900,000 is bags, number of units, and the 1.6 is the dollars for the machine hour. So dividing the 900,000 bags by the 1.6 machine hours, it would not give me anything.
Maybe.
Yes.
Divided the 400,000 by 800,000, and we'll multiply it by.
Excellent. 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 Therefore, first of all, we need to calculate the standard machine hour for 1 unit. And we can calculate this number, and we can calculate this ratio according to these numbers. These numbers say to us that we need 400,000 standard machine hours in order to produce 800,000 bags. Therefore, each bag would need how much machine hours? Half. Excellent. Therefore, 400,000 machine hours divided by 800,000 bags would equal 0.5 machine hours, or standard machine hours. Correct? This is according to our budget. This is according to our static budget. This is the standard machine hours per unit, which should be used in the flexible budget. Correct? Now, the flexible budget would use the standard machine hours, but for what? For the actual output. Therefore, now, the quantity would be 900,000 bags multiplied by 0.5. Correct? Of course, multiplied by the rate, or the budgeted rate, $1.6, which would equal $720,000. Any questions? Now, of course, we have the numbers. Now, we can easily compute the efficiency variance and the spending variance. Of course, we should have incurred $720,000, but we only incurred $704,000. Therefore, we have a favorable variance, or a favorable efficiency variance, by the amount of 16,000. By the amount of 16,000. And then we should have incurred 704,000, but we actually incurred 699, which is less. Therefore, it would be favorable. We should have incurred 704, but we incurred less than the 704. Therefore, this is a favorable variance. And then the amount would be 4,400. Yes? وضحت? Now what is the question? Allowed for the actual output. Excellent. Therefore, we use the 900,000 bags, which is the actual production and sold bags, sold number of units. Yes. The flexible budget, in order to calculate the flexible budget amount, we need to multiply the budgeted quantity allowed for the actual output by the budgeted rate, correct? Of course, the budgeted rate is given at the beginning of the year, or it is calculated at the beginning of the year according to our static budget or the static amounts, which was 1.6. Now, the budgeted quantity, what is the quantity here? It is the machine hours. Therefore, we need to know what is the machine hours that is needed to produce the actual number of bags. We need to consider, we need to calculate the standard machine hours according to our standards that is needed to manufacture and produce the 900,000 bags. Of course, according to our standard, according to this information, we find out that each unit needs 0.5 machine hours to be produced. Therefore, if we are going to use 0.5 hours or standard machine hours to produce one unit, therefore, the 900,000 multiplied by the 0.5 would give us the budgeted quantity or the standard machine hours that should be used in order to produce the 900,000 bags. Therefore, the 900 or the $450,000, the 450,000 machine hours is the standard machine hours, is the budgeted machine hours to be used in order to produce the 900,000 bags. This is the meaning of a flexible budget amount. Any questions? Therefore, as we can see here, both are favorable. Therefore, we would have a flexible budget or a favorable flexible budget variance, which is the 20,400 would be. Now, let us consider the fixed overhead variances. Of course, the fixed overhead we need to compare the flexible budget with the actual in order to calculate or compute the spending variance, and the flexible budget with the allocated amount in order to compute the production volume variance. Of course, according to our question, we have a budgeted fixed manufacturing overhead by the amount of 470,000 and an actual fixed manufacturing overhead by the amount of 501,900. Now let us consider the allocated amount. The allocated amount should be calculated using the standard machine hours for the actual output multiplied by the standard rate for the fixed manufacturing overhead. Did they give us the standard rate for the fixed manufacturing overhead? Therefore, we need to calculate the fixed manufacturing overhead rate or allocation rate. So how we are going to calculate the fixed manufacturing overhead rate? You need to the budgeted amount, because we are using a standard costing system, and according to standard costing system or even normal costing system, we need to calculate the budgeted rate or the budgeted allocation rate. Therefore, in order to calculate the budgeted allocation rate, we need to divide the cost pool or the budgeted cost pool by the total or the budgeted total number of units of the allocation base. Therefore, the cost pool in this case is the 470,000 divided by the total number of machine hours, which would equal 1.175. Therefore, this is the rate. Of course, this 1.175 is per machine hour. Therefore, we need now to multiply the 1.175 by the budgeted quantity of machine hours for the actual output. Therefore, 900,000 bags multiplied by 0.5. This would equal 528,750. Now, as we can see, we can calculate the different variances easily. The difference between the 528,750 and the 470 is the production volume variance. Of course, we allocated more than what was expected. Therefore, we produced more units than what was expected. Therefore, this is a favorable variance by the amount of 58,750. And of course, we have a spending variance, which is the difference between the 470,000 and the 501,900 by the amount of 31,900. Of course, it is unfavorable because we should have incurred 470, but we incurred more than the 470. We incurred 501,900. This is the spending variance. Any questions? We are going to continue, inshallah, the next time with this problem. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you the next time, inshallah.